Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu einer weiteren Folge Witch on the Holy Night. Sergio hat Aoko endlich mal davon erzählt, was ihm komisch vorkam von Anfang an. Und jetzt haben die sich über 10 Minuten eine Strategie überlegt, wie sie Alice wohl doch noch besiegen können. They strategized for 10 minutes. After deliberating, the Snarks to form and figuring out a plan of attack, the two exchanged nods in acceptance of the roles.
それじゃあここからは別行動ね。でもミラーハウスの時みたいなのは勘弁してよ。この作戦の肝はあなたなんだから。開始1分でドジったら本当に打つ手なしだからね。
So, she jabbed him for his previous failure as a decoy. Her voice was bright. Arco's original vigor had returned to her at Sojiro's discovery of the truth. Meanwhile, Sojiro was also getting serious in his own way. He took Arco's warning to heart.
ならいいけど、いい？さっきと立場は反対よ。失敗したら死ぬのは私じゃなくてそっち。もうフォローに回れないから、できるだけ慎重にね。
分かってる。今更ながら、やっぱりさっき逃がしてもらえばよかったと思うぐらい慎重だ。
Sojiro nodded, telling her to leave it to him, though he made it sound like he was holding a grudge. It seemed to him to be the only way of showing her his resolve. Oko let out the sigh of defeat. Once more, she couldn't figure him out.
ほんと、大バカなんだか大物なんだか。でも任せた。期待してるわ、しずきくん。
She had wanted to say that she believed in him, but apparently that was too embarrassing for her. Ako turned away from Sojiro and began to run. She had begun to think that maybe this change of pace was not so bad after all. And so ended the intermission. The young cast members were handed the new lines. Whatever happened next, the Night of Witches had at long last entered its climax. She was filled with foreboding at the Robins' report. Apparently they had gone in opposite directions. The park's residents had set off after the boy witness, and it would take them mere minutes to capture him, so the bird said.
どういうこと？追いかけているのは本当に彼？青子が変装しているのではなく。
The robin flapped its wings, chirping away any doubt. It had seen them with its own two eyes. Oko was heading for the plaza, where the cocky bird was making a run for the roller coaster.
青子が彼を見捨てた？そんな簡単なことならいいけど、ダンプティは彼に張り付いているの？
The robin nodded enthusiastically. It didn't know about the other birds, but with its superior night vision, it had seen that sucker clearly because he had moved to a high point.
ダンプティはなんて？最後まで歌わせろ。こんな褒め殺したい間抜けはまたとない。ですって。
Scratch Dumpty was a ticking time bomb that would drop and detonate the moment its target averted its gaze. That is, as long as his targets continued to observe him. In a way, he was a gentlemanly ploy kickshaw, though Alice wished he would forgo such niceties when in battle.
そうね。視線を切らないだけではダンプティからは逃げられない。彼がどこまで逃げようと、あと少しでダンプティがしまってくれるわ。
Until the pack, or rather the Snark, was destroyed, Sojiro would not be able to escape, which meant the large concern was Aoko. Aoko had promised to protect the boy, which begged the question, where was she running to?
ここにいる限り、青子の動向はつかめない。
Alice looked out over the park, ignoring the robin's attempt to get her attention with its plumage. First, Flat Snark had nearly reached its full size. It was a different breed of beast compared to the other cheap ploys. To her, it was one of her three most irreplaceable and precious familiars.
そうね。任せたわ、スナーク。青子が諦めない以上、あなたも手は抜かないで。
Alice remained where she was. with the same historical merit as the troll under the bridge, and the poison-clawed reptile fled Snark was one of Alice's ultimate ploys. She was placing her trust in its reputation and ability.
でも忘れないで。これはゲームよ。勝敗がついたのなら、私のところに帰ってきて。
The drifting fog ignored the master's words. It was the one thing that Alice had misread. Fled Snark was a king, even among other ploys, of terrible vulgar antics. Death to the defeated, gruesome tragedy to the vanquished. It found no pleasure unless it brought about a dramatic ruination of life and wealth. The fog bellowed like wicked laughter. After all, only a king had the right to decide the fate of the vanquished, and the Snark's greed could not be contained. Thus, it hadn't even the slightest intent to play fair, despite its master's orders. Nett. Over 100 feet high. One careful step at a time, the figure made its way gingerly up the track which stretched into the heart of the amusement park. He stayed his beating chest and the pounding of his breath. Even tiny movements were an obstacle to his progress. Amazingly, the one making this pale-faced advance higher and higher was Sojiro Suzuki. Far below he saw that a horde of bright creatures had congregated by the roller coaster platform. As they bustled this way, and that the numbers continued to increase by the minute, seemingly cheering Sojiro with raised arms. Seemingly cheering on Sojiro with raised arms as he made his escape. Rather, they jeered as if beckoning him to come down.
助かった。あれ、高いところは苦手なんだ。
Of course, neither did Sojiro, but his current state was the lesser of two evils. The only thing that followed him was now the floating egg. After having a huge dive, Sojiro bent forward a bit and climbed the track that inclined towards the heavens. 150 feet now. This is where a skyscraper he would be on the 16th floor. A strong gust of wind wiped through his hair. Humans had an instinctual fear of height. In particular, a place like this, which called forth visions of falling to one's death, would cause a person's knees to tremble against their will. It was an instinct that forewarned death, urging its master to return to the safety of the ground. It was a reasonable reaction. Climbing the roller coaster tracks went beyond funny stories and into the realm of fantasy. The strong winds and chains in the air pressure were a hindrance. His instinct screamed at him to stop, causing his limbs to go numb, his muscles to go limp, and his mind to race. Even if he had been tied to his lifeline, a mere 15 feet of climbing would still have caused his thoughts to freeze out of sheer terror, and would only get worse from here, exponentially so. Every foot forward increased the load on both his mind and his body by another degree.
よし、頂上まであと少し。
The burn on his mind, notwithstanding, he carefully measured the toll on his body with every step. His legs, which had carried him running this far, threatened to buckle the moment he let down his guard. This fatigue was likely why Aoko had stressed that Sojiro's role was more dangerous than hers.
待てよ。逆を言うと、疲れてなければなんとかなると思ってたんだよな、青崎は。
Sojiro laughed as he stared at the floating egg. He reflected on the course of events that had led to this absurd situation. Not even 10 minutes ago, they had been engaged in conversation.
じゃあ次ね。正体が分かった以上、あとはどう壊すかを話し合いましょう。
Sojiro felt a shudder travel down his spine at Aoko's smug grin. In hindsight, Aoko had been more than happy at this point to make him do something absurd.
どう壊すかって、それなら。
Sojiro wondered aloud. From what he had seen, Aoko had enough fire to tear clean through the fence. He had refrained from speculating about Flat's next reform because it felt there was nothing he could do about it, even if they knew. But that had changed. For Aoko, the impossible was quite literally within her grasp.
そうでもないわ。私の目算だとあと50メートル分ギリギリで届かない。
Despair filled Sojiro's eyes. Aoko lifted a hand to her long hair and with a magical charged fingertip clipped a clean tuft of it.
足りない分は努力と根性ってね。あなたはできるだけ高いところまで逃げて。頃合いを見て合図を出すから。そうしたらこれを空に放ってくれる？
But based on where Aoko's point gazed, she did not really mean to leave it up to Sojiro to pick the highest place he could find. She was staring conspicuously at the amusement park's two main attractions, the roller coaster.
つまり青崎とは別行動をとってあの怪物たちに追われながら高いところに逃げ込めと。
そういうこと。ほら、あのうねうね動き出してるコースターのレールとかよくない？
There were two demons in this park. Her smile made even Sojiro want to respond that it was far from perfect.
疑いたくはないんだが、本当はあの子とグルで俺を遠回しに殺そうとしてるんじゃないか。
あら、私に殺されるのならいいんでしょ？
人の出現を悪用するのは良くないと思う。
The jungle said this was not sane. If he did, as she said, he would die from exhaustion before Kitsy even had the chance to eat him.
私だって鬼じゃないわ。ほら、こっち向いて。おまじないかけてあげる。
Peace? It was the lightest of touches, close enough for the breath and skin to connect and Saki finished with a hushed voice. For one of them this was a rather mundane magecraft. For the other it was a head-spinning intimate ambush.
軽く、弱く、うまく、早く。
The weight of the air, the timbre of one's breath.
チクタクチクタク。急げや急げ。
Also, light and trail, nimble and fast, the weight of the air and the trumpet of one's breast. Tick tock, there's no time to waste. Light lags behind while shadows pull ahead. Words that could not be produced by a normal larynx, carrying a peculiar weight to them, reverberated against his eardrums. If words were given colors, these would have been the color of her name, blue. Ow. Sojiro's exhausted body and burning blood gently cooled.
飛ぶ、泳ぐ、駆け抜ける。
Fly swim round, a bird in the sky, a fish in the sea, you in the
チクタ
distance.
クチクタク。汽笛を鳴らせ。
Stuffed doubt and anxiety in the sack, begins the journey at dawn.
星はいつでも北の空。どこまでも、いつまでも。
A shining star falls into your heart. In reality it took about a few seconds, but the sudden contact had felt a little longer.
よし、暗示成功。成功したはず。ここまで手応えがあったの初めてだし、アリスの小言もたまには役に立つじゃない。
A very merry Aoko stood aside a very confused Sojiro. After he asked what the heck had occurred, she responded,
簡単な暗示よ。一時的に恐怖心を消しておいたから、高いところに登っても平気なはず。あの手の作業で一番足を引っ張るのは同様でしょ。恐怖も何も感じなければ、地上何メートルだろうと、平均台とそう変わらないってわけ。
He seemed to get it. It actually all sounded like Greek to Sojiro, but he accepted it as an explanation for her strange accents. He had arrived at the summit of the track. From nearly 200 feet high, Sojiro had a bird's eye view of the entire amusement park. He was able to spot Aoku's figure right away. in the plaza not far from here. She seemed to be occupied with something conspicuous. The surroundings lay still. The breadmen were still busy trying to figure out how to reach Tokyo by try and error from the roller coaster's entrance. They were over 300 feet away now.
汗をかくはずだ。こんなに移動したのか。
The strong winter gales quickly dried the sweat on his brow, but he was drenched underneath his shirt. This much sweat was worth at least half a mile run, not to mention all the scars he had experienced throughout the night.
でもよかった。あとは合図を待つだけだ。
He felt a wave of relief, but not at the thought of Aoko destroying the Snark in this nightmarish park. He was simply happy that he could repay a bit of his debt from the House of Mirrors. A blue bullet rose from the plaza where Aoko was located. So he stood atop the tracks, pulled out the pouch he had stowed in his pocket and tossed it forward. Without any regard for his questionable footing, he gave it a mighty overarm pitch. The small pouch drew a parabolic curve in Aoko's direction, quickly becoming untied in midair. Inside the bag was a lock of her hair and a small stone weight.
高いところから風に乗せてくれれば、あとは何とかするから。
Aoko had said that, but it was Sojo's effort that had set the plan in motion. The tuft of hair remained airborne, drifting as if watching over its owner. Sojo's job was done. He remained concerned about the egg hovering over him, but there was nothing he could do about it. Sojo breathed a sigh of relief and leaned forward to watch the rest of the plan unfold, but then...
Mumu?
In the corner of his eye, he thought he spotted something familiar approaching Aoko. Okay.
Route set.
Okay, das sieht schon sehr cool aus, finde ich.
Direct. 1層、2層、予備に3層。魔力提供、体現に固定。循環よし、射角よし、術式安定、大まかよし。
A pattern began to carve itself into the brick street. The casting of an unprecedented incantation with unprecedented range. Keeping the rising tension contained within her chest, the fledgling maid snapped her finger.
決めた。ツアープラン、スターマイン。
Done bullet configuration. She kneeled at the center of the formula and raised her head to the night sky. Not even a glimpse of the transmogrific fantasy land around her entered her vision now. Only one untouchable thing was reflected in her blue eyes.
実はずっと気になっていたことが。
This is how the conversation started a few minutes prior. Cedric began with a simple statement of fact. In truth, it really was the simplest of discrepancies. The difference between the reality of an hour ago and the illusion of the present was both infinitesimal and infinite.
雲があったから勘違いしたんだろうけど。
It was hiding in plain sight. Too impossible to be real, too outlandish to be here. In this amusement park where every paradigm shifted something was brazenly flaunting its normalcy.
今夜は新月なんだ、青崎。
思えば初めっからその形だったものね、あんたは。
The distance from the Earth to the Moon was 238,900 miles. If it truly was identical to the actual Moon, then this monster indeed lived up into its eerie reputation. At a distance that vast, there would have been no need to hide it. It could flaunt its true form for all to see. But if it had to hide its true form, that meant it was vulnerable. The monster's camouflage implied that it sat within the reach of a human hand.
こっちの最大射程はよくて600ってところだけど。
At this point it was time to give it all she had. Drawing on the energy surging throughout the park, she extended her firing arm. blue firework launched into the air. Looking up at her hair dancing in the wind above, Oko reached out her right hand as if to catch the night sky. A mage's own body made for the perfect catalyst, and for a female mage, the hair she had grown out over many years made for a particularly valuable and powerful source of fuel. To use it, all she had to do was apply her will. She locked in the fingers on both hands together and shouted,
Sansou Tenkai! Zen Jutsushiki! Renketsu Kido!
Okay, geil. She held forth a clear challenge to bind the moon to herself. The mist began to whirl about in a vortex. The monster high above before its fangs at the sight of the blue spell that appeared in mid-air. By the time Alice had noticed, the chainsaw hostility between Aoko and the Snark was palpable.
なら青子の勝ちよ。すぐに戻りなさい。確かに雨雲を消したのはヒントの上げすぎだけど、それぐらいは多めに見て。
The fog continued to thicken with no signs of abating. The moon that floated in the night sky could not pardon such an insolent mage. As if the Lord of the Night would bow down to such impudence, there was no staying its wrath at a challenge so flagrant.
Snark!
The robin swooped in to give her its report, but Alice waved it away. Her gaze was fixed on the transforming golden moon. Her cards of resistance did not reach it. This fairytale monster was beholden to nobody, and it would have no qualms unleashing its vast might upon its puny prey. The core of her magic bullet poured. The magic circles within her body spun. Aoko had fed the magical energy scorching her nerves with imaginary flames. She was linked to the formula inscribed on the ground. The spell was ready to execute the same as it always was, but its onset was far beyond reckoning. With this much firepower, even the mundane process would invite injury upon its caster. It was enough to burn up the nerves that were acting as a barrel. The imaginary heat had reached a terrifying temperature. Aoko trembled at this endless feeling, but would have to grin and bear it less than the effort come to naught. Aoko could no longer move. When she had learned the Snark's true form from Soju, she gave up on a superiority of a movable turret offered, instead opting to become a stationary cannon. That was the only way she could reach it. It was impossible to run the Snark unless she anchored her chest at this location and angle. At the same time, his action revealed that she was out of options. Once the fuse was lit, she would have no choice but to fight to the bitter end. Aoko took a deep breath. This was the way she wanted it. Her preparations were complete. She would be able to deliver this maelstrom of magic energy directly to the moon, like a rocket payload. The third mid-air layer served as the cannon's muzzle, and inside it would fire the magical energy once it reached criticality, and allowed Aoko to adjust the angle of fire. The moon became warped within her scope. As Aoko charged back into the deploy displayed its golden form as if to mock her. Come, worship the heaven's powerless scion of an innocent bloodline, for there it was, a point among the otherworldly sky, a mystical visage obfuscated by jade mist and azure clouds. Called the greatest treasure known to the world of magecraft, a rarity more valuable than an entire crown phantasm. Okay, das sieht geil aus. Das sieht ja mal richtig sick aus hier. Set apart from the world's greatest fabrication. Not yet, just... Her instinct screamed at her to delay no further. This fairy tale monster was the greatest of its kind, and it was about to expose its true form. Its open hostility made it clear that it was ready to counterattack.
もう動けない。逃げを捨てての大栄翔。先に撃たれたらそこで終わりだ。
She had to shoot it down first. Magical energy was at 80%. The formula was operating normally. All that was left was to pull the trigger, but the calm voice inside her head asked if that was really okay. She had one shot at this, and there was no going back. It was a matter of precision, with no room for miscalculations. Even a tenth of a second of hesitation would tip the scales. Was she ready for the pain? Was she ready to deal with the fallout if she missed? Could she really even take down the moon with such a tiny bullet in the first place?
いい。とりあえず当たった後で考える。
Her eyes fixed upon the moon were filled with determination. She knew that the moment she fired, the intense recoil would overwhelm her entire body. Still, she shouted.
上等。出し惜しみはなし。目いっぱいぶん回すわ。
With every ounce of spirit she possessed, she fired her ultra-long-range projectile into the sky. Oh, sieht das sick aus. The third layer embraced the magic bullet fired from the surface of the earth. The crest, an extension of DarthSevSev, unleashed light to pierce the moon. However, an enormous blue canopy provides the beam. It returned to SRZ 3,000-degree flame to nothing as it came in contact with the bullet. The recoil of the Grand Mage caused little boiled her blood. Her body couldn't handle it. Her heart stopped. Her brain went numb from the pain and impact. Her nerves purified from end to end, but the magic crest revived them all by force.
氷で防がれた。
Even though her vision had gone white, she could still see it. Swallowing the blood in her mouth, Oki had looked up with a scowl. There it was, an enormous sheet of ice in the sneering dim-formed sky.
撃つのが遅すぎた。それとも早すぎた。盾を作られる前に撃てばよかった。一層、二層、再起動。
There was no time to think or hesitate. The magical energy throughout the park began to gather. Aoko kneeled, across from the tyrannical face of the moon. She intuited that ice had yet to fully form. That Snark still didn't have reached its full strength, which was exactly why. By accelerating the spell, Aoko damaged her own body. The burden of linking the formula to the Snark caused intense pain. All she could do was grit her teeth and endure it. All because Oki had gotten a read on the relative strength. Even if its volume of magical energy was identical, Snark's form, its mystic scale, was in a different league. Oki could charge her energy to her absolute limit, and that would barely make a dent in the ice wall. Meanwhile, there was nothing she could do to prevent her own annihilation if the Snark gathered as much energy as it could. She lowered her next shot. She issued order to the floating third layer. Ignoring the toll on her body, she began to accelerate the first layer of armor. The wall of her right hand, single layer, must be absorbed and stored surrounding magical energy. The thick fog that drifted through this park was an ancient ether spirit outside Flight Snark's own body, but Aoko could pour it into her formula. Ako's body, which had integrated with the formula, took in a moment a magical energy that far surpassed the maximum capacity. It seethed in agony, or rather it trembled in delight. For a mage, magical energy was a propellant to reach the realm of mystics, the expansion of an internal time. The liquefaction of the self, the release from the physical, they were all what one might call near-death experiences. On the precipice, of what lay beyond, Aoko stood firm and faced reality. Still, reality had come to break her will. The gap between them was plain to any observer. The gun baron named Aoko Arasaki had not a chance to chip away at that lump of ice. She accelerated the spell further. The sky grinned. That ice was no shield. It was hammer to crush mages who did not know their place. The moon laughed as it prepared to crush not just Aoko, but the boy atop the roller coaster as well as the park in its entirety. Her circuits were on the verge of going critical. Her body had been charged with a scorching power supply from her fingertips to her eyeballs. She would see the bullet fired. She would arrange the major formula as quickly as the nerve transmission speed would allow. A single attack was not enough. There was no way to shoot it from its length, which meant there was only one solution. The third layer began to transform. It switched from direct to alternating current. The spell's supposed strong point was its ability to adjust its trajectory mid-flight, but right now all she wanted was numbers. A blue sun shined down upon the amusement park. Beams of light at maximum output streaked forth to pierce the golden moon. Putting down the trigger to continue to fire, taking in energy at infinitum. Blue flame shoot forth at a critical level, but the ice would neither melt nor mar. No amount of sheer heat could make a dent in something formed from such a colossal amount of magical energy. The total inner circuit sent them berserk, and blood began to run free. The battle had become a tussle over magical energy that filled the park. From the very beginning, this had been Snark's home turf. The Snark had control over at least 80% of the space, while Aoko had 20 at best. Also eigentlich möchte ich langsam mal die Folge beenden. The cast of ice decided as if to call the match. All she could do was delay the inevitable. She knew that she had been backed into a wall, and right now the only thing she could do was to keep firing. Then again, perhaps not. There was another option. If she converted all of her magical energy into her defense, there was a tiny chance, no, not tiny, a great possibility in fact that she could save just her. Clinging to that broken hope, Aoko continued to rotate the circuits. The time seemed to stop at the magical energy overdose. A second of intense pain lasted an eternity. Then, amidst everything, something approached one step at a time. Ich würde sagen, an dem Punkt beende ich jetzt mal die Folge. Ich hatte eigentlich gehofft, dass wir noch den Flat Snark runterholen, aber das wird mir langsam zu lange. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.